like you want to say something.
I was going to move to get the ALE folks up to number 1 spot.
Oh, okay. Director Harris, do you have a motion you would like to share?
I have a motion to amend the agenda, if I might, Madam Chair. And that's to move the alternative learning experience to the next position on the agenda, please. There are little children in the house that need to go to bed, and overworked principals that need to get up and do it again with feeling in the morning.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so moved. So that moves item number 6 to the front of the line. Oh, you know what? This is an intro item. Okay. Can we do an intro item ahead of action? This is a question for General Counsel.
Noel Treat, General Counsel. Yes, you can amend your agenda. You have a lot of discretion and flexibility around how you want to do that. So you can certainly move the item and have it now and then come back to action items.
Then shall we proceed? All right. Let's move ahead with item number 6. It's intro only. Thank you. Oh, okay. Let me see. I will read that. So this is the annual approval of written plans of programs or schools using the alternative learning experience model. And I'd like to speak to the CNI chair. Can you speak to?
Unfortunately, I was unable to attend CNI that day, but it was presented in CNI October 10th and was recommended to be moved forward for consideration.
All right, thank
And
you.
I would ask my colleagues to speak to why it was consideration as compared to for approval.
I was there. I honestly don't recall, kind
Okay.
sir.
He asked me to.
All
These
right.
were consistent.
Perhaps staff can address the.
Hi, I'm Dan Gallagher, Director of Career and College Readiness. I also was unable to attend, but I do know the reason why it was moved for consideration. So this is for the annual approval of the alternative learning experiences. This is per state regulation. It includes 2 components: an approval of the program, and then also sharing of the plan and the annual report. The annual report for the 2 ALEs we had last year, 3 of the components of that report require student counts: head count, student FTE, and staff to student ratio. Because we wanted to include the October count for that, the report that was presented to CNI committee meeting had those parts blank. So that's why you didn't move to approve, but for consideration. So if you refer to the attachments, the 2 reports from interagency as well as Cascade Parent Partnership now in items 1, 2, and 3 include those figures. I'd also like to acknowledge the principals of the 4 programs here. Melinda Leonard from Interagency, Mark Perry from Nova High School, Owen Gonder from Cascade Parent Partnership, and Jennifer Nisley from Middle College. And I appreciate your compassion on moving them up in the agenda.
Are there any questions or comments?
My comment is, I'm just really thrilled to see this happening again. It happened in the past. It gives us flexibility. Kids are not widgets, so our budgets and our programs ought not be widgets as well. And I'm very pleased that this will give us that kind of flexibility with good leadership. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We shall now return to the action portion of our agenda. And the first item is 2016-17 Board Governance Priorities and Superintendent Goals. This came to the Executive Committee on September 8th and it was advanced for consideration. I believe that the reason why it was for consideration was we were about to have a board retreat where we were going to discuss these issues in some further detail, and we wanted to wait until we got that information. All right. Do I have a motion? Okay,
Second.
all right. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Director Pinkham?
So sorry, so we are on the first action item, correct?
Yes.
And one of the commenters that public comments brought up as far as do we have access to any data on other schools that maybe just we can look at for a baseline or something to compare ourselves against? Do we know if we have access to something like that?
Good evening, Erin Bennett, Government Relations and Strategic Initiatives. We have developed our superintendent evaluation tools over the last few years. It started in consultation with WASDA, the Washington State School Directors Association. We were one of their pilots. So what I can do is reach out to WASDA and also get some feedback on not only our pilot, which for the record has kind of been modified as we went along, but also how some of the other pilots that they did are doing. And I also can just ask if they have any other suggestions in terms of benchmarks and things like that.
Any other comments or questions? All right, Director Burke.
I just want to share a comment since we're kind of in the thick of working on goals, future-facing goals as well. And as a first-year board director, I get to kind of look at it with fresh eyes, fresh perspective, and maybe fresh criticism or critical mindset. And one of the things that I've kind of struggled with throughout, when you look at education and education philosophy, it seems like there's always a next better thing. The concept of education reform is like the new normal. And so one of the things that I'd like for us to think about as an organization is if there's a way that we can try to morph our goal structure into something which represents continuing doing what we're doing that's good, and then a set of goals that represent change management. So if we're doing a goal, it should be a goal for something we want to change. And maybe that's a student achievement level, maybe that's an internal structure, but the idea that the majority of the work that we do here is really staying the course and trying to deliver great education to our students. And so if we can be really deliberate about only changing things that need to be changed and having continuity of services, we talk about continuity, consistency, not having disruption. Every time we change something in the district, it's a potential for disruption. So the idea of thinking about organizational change as within the goal structure. And I'm kind of seeing some furrowed eyebrows, but that's just a thought for us to discuss in the future.
Director Harris.
I'm going to push back on you, Director Burke. Staying the course, with all due respect, the course is not good enough, and that we need to be on a continuum, perhaps? Would you agree with that? A continuum of improvement?
I would not agree with that as a global statement. I would agree with that as a selective statement where if we say we want to improve as an organization, it means, we look around, we have pockets of excellence. We don't want to disrupt that excellence. We don't want to disrupt things that are working well by creating a new goal that undermines that work. We want to be able to create a goal that targets areas for improvement and initiatives that target areas for improvement. It's almost more of a granularity discussion. Do we need to improve as an organization, or do we need to improve specific aspects of our organization?
I'll vote for both. Thank you.
I also have a comment. for SMART goal number 4, that is the one that concerns our budget. And as a member of the Audit and Finance Committee, I'm very interested in this, but also I think we're all very concerned about where we're heading next year financially. And so this is a goal that I think is one of the more crucial ones in a way. And I was looking at the wording of the goal, and one sentence in the top of this rubric says, the district will conduct a district comparison by major activities and programs, including looking for efficiencies. And that sentence struck me as a little vague. And I'm sorry I didn't catch this sooner, but I don't know that that conveys what we were trying to get at with this goal. And so the conversation around the intent was, let's take a look. Given that we have limited resources, let's take a look at what we're doing with what we've got and evaluate the different programs, initiatives, services, and see which ones are working, how much they're costing, and whether we need to reconsider some of these and maybe allocate some funds. And I don't know that that sentence expresses that sentiment. So I'm going to make a suggestion, a few edits to that sentence with the idea that that would help guide us in this goal. And so here they are, and if people are amenable to this idea, I'd like to propose this as an amendment to that or a change to this sentence, and that would be, the district will conduct an analysis and comparison of costs and benefits of major activities and programs, including looking for efficiencies within. So what I did there was I added some vibrant verbs and nouns that are a little bit more specific, and added the word analysis, which I think needs to be in there. So if I were
You're
to,
offering that as an amendment, I will second same.
all right. Sure.
Thank you. I'm doing this from memory, and I may need some help from those of you with better memories than I. When we had this discussion, we agreed that that's something that we definitely want to do. So I think I can say with surety that that is exactly what we need to do. We also noted, and this is where my memory may be a bit flawed, that to do that work would take substantial resources and time. And so we didn't put it into the work for the first year of that goal because we didn't allocate resources to do so. And I'm looking to see if anyone else is helping me with memory. Perhaps our CFO could help with that. Thank you.
Jolyn Berge, Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance. I concur with your memory.
So what that would mean for us to do so, and again, I think it's an absolutely essential and worthy thing to do, so let's be clear about that. It would take resources that we have not currently set aside. I'm struggling with what we thought it might take to do that, and it would of course depend on the scope of how many different programs that we would look at. To do the work well is time consuming and usually done by outside people without bias, so they can come in and help us discover whatever it is that we need to do. I have done those types of reviews in prior positions for other organizations, and it's about a 6-month process, and depending upon the detail, you can spend a couple of $100,000 in time and people looking at something if you go into a very deep detail on a specific district-wide set of issues, or you might spend $25,000 on a more high-level view of a specific program.
This being a fairly crucial year in terms of our budget, it seems to me that it would be worthwhile to find the resources to at least head in this direction. And again, the sentence as written right now doesn't really send us anywhere. So I would like some more precise language in there, and I get the impression that some of my colleagues share that sentiment. I know, well, I'll just speak for myself. So, you know, we have allocated funds for each of our SMART goals. And does anyone recall how much we allocated for the budget SMART goal?
0.
We allocated 0 funds
0.
to the budget SMART
Yes.
goal?
We put in
No,
$50,000 to support the news dues based on our participation in that group, so that's basically a per capita cost for us to support that effort. And then we also included, I think, $2,500 originally for community engagement around the way we use budget, and we trimmed that back when we were looking at ways to shave on savings.
Right now, Goal 4 does not have any budget allocated to it.
Well, that's a bit of a dilemma. Well, then I would like to propose that if we do value this as a goal and we want to make some headway, and in view of the fact that we were recently asked to start thinking about some very difficult choices that we need to make for our budget, that this would be a wise step for us. So I'm wondering whether we could take a look at the board budget. We have a certain amount of funds in our budget. Perhaps we could
Sure.
decide to allocate it for some sort of analysis that would come out of our budget. Well, Director Burke has been waiting to speak, and then Director Harris.
I just have a clarification question, because I think I'm on board with the the intent that you're speaking to, but I want to understand, we have a motion and a second, so this is a viable legislative activity we're talking about here. You're referring to the last sentence in SMART Goal 4?
Correct.
The district will
Correct.
conduct
Right.
a district comparison by major activities and programs, including looking for efficiencies. I was wondering if there could be a little bit of a dialogue around how that crosses over with Goal 3, where it includes the district will design and implement a pilot program review process to systematically evaluate the implementation and impact of current program offerings. So that speaks to a very, a narrower educational set, whereas Goal 4 is a little bit of a broader picture, but Goal 3 has more specificity in it, partly because it's operating on a finer level of granularity. So I'm wondering how much of Goal 3 do we have to have complete to be able to do Goal 4, or are they separate activities that can be done in parallel?
Well, I'll just respond by saying that I think the two are definitely connected, and that Goal 4 would be sort of the umbrella under which we would have an analysis of the program. So yes, the two definitely complement each other, but I believe with the budget we also need to take a look at things like initiatives and allocations, and so those might not be program related, they might be something else. Director Geary?
And it was my understanding that Goal 3 was really focused on our schools and what's being delivered in our schools, whereas I read this, and this one would also encompass administrative activities, programs. And so I think that was driving some of the efficiencies conversation.
Director Pinkham?
I'm just wondering if some of your language that you're asking to change in the SMART goal, that last one, if that's more in the distinguished area, because we do have reviews and analyzes adjustments, kind of how it goes, whereas do we put that in the SMART goal itself, or is it a measure of how well they're doing?
Yeah, it could be both, but realizing that this is late in the game, I thought perhaps the best way to handle this more globally was to put it in the general description of the goal at the top. And like I said, add more specificity to what we're asking.
So if I could make a suggestion.
Sure, thank you.
So if we amend the language per your suggestion, Maybe we can work together, either individually, myself with Director Peters, to kind of flesh a plan for this out and what that would look like, or we could work through the ANF committee that meets next week and have an agenda item that kind of starts to give some substance to how we would detail out this idea.
Director Harris.
I like the idea. I do not like the idea of poaching out of the board budget because I think it's a joke to start with. There's got to be more change in the sofa cushions than robbing the board budget that really doesn't give us very darn much at all. And if you look at folks who are serving at their peril, that we're told we can't even afford a cell phone for them to get instantaneous email to keep up with the thousands of emails we get, I object to that concept mightily. We are not funded worth a darn as a board of directors. Fight on your hands. Thanks.
Well, if we believe something is a priority, if we as a board firmly believe that, and if there are not funds to pursue that, I was just putting forth a possibility. As far as the board budget, it varies on what year it is. If it's an election year, then there's more in the budget. And we've talked about reconsidering how we allocate the board budget, whether we want to spend it on travel, for example, or other issues. And I think there has been an interest in allocating the board budget differently. So, I mean, that's a discussion that we can continue. I'd like to return then to the language. Yeah, I'll restate it. The district will analysis in comparison of costs and benefits of major activities and programs, including looking for efficiencies within. Would it help if we changed the word conduct to begin?
Yes.
Director Geary.
I like the goal in that even if unfunded, as we have work sessions and staff is reporting to us on what they are doing, perhaps some cost-benefit analysis can be woven into that, which I think is where this comes up. We get the presentations and they talk about, you know, their SWOT, but we're not really sure what that means in terms of the finances of it. So perhaps it can be woven in without being too disruptive in terms, or, you know, too expensive, let's say. It just seems like the next part of that analysis. What is the value of that analysis that's being presented to us?
Okay. So if we have the word begin in there with the other changes, would that address what you were saying, Joe? Yeah. Sure.
Thank you for this, and again, I think speaking for the staff, we like the idea. It's just a matter of whether or not we can fulfill the commitment once approved by the board. As we look at the rubrics under the goal, a lot of the definition of begin and also of depth gets down to, as pointed out already, basic, proficient, distinguished. So part of the expectation would have to do with how do we work together to get as far over to the distinguished category as possible. I think that's to Jolene's point, that is a subject that we could continue to work on during the year. And as we've noted with several of the other rubrics, they sometimes need modification even after they've been developed. So I would suggest that this is an opportunity for us to be a little bit proactive and also flexible to achieve a very, very worthy and important goal.
Okay. Well, then at this point, I was about to say I should withdraw the first one and put forth the second one with the changed word.
Yeah, why don't we do this? You didn't actually formally make the motion
Okay.
as we normally do, so maybe you could go ahead and just make the motion anew with the language as you would like it. Because the other alternative is you would have to, if we want to consider this motion made and seconded properly, then what you actually have to do, an individual then can't pull it off themselves. You need the full board to vote. So you have two options then. You could make an amendment to amend the amendment, or you could make a motion to withdraw the amendment, have everybody vote, and then start over. So it might be easier to just make a motion to withdraw the motion,
Okay.
vote on that, and then make the new
All right.
motion.
All right, I move to withdraw my amendment. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Now I'd like to put forth another amendment, very similar to the last, with just one word change. And so it would now read, the district will begin an analysis and comparison of costs and benefits of major activities and programs, including looking for efficiencies within. Do I have a second? Is there any further discussion? All right. Does Ms. Ritchie take the roll call now?
Yeah.
Okay. that's what I
Okay.
thought.
So this is the amendment to the motion? Okay. Director Geary.
Aye.
Director Harris. Director Pinkham.
Aye.
Director Burke.
Aye.
And Director Peters.
Aye, and thank you.
This motion to amend the action item number 1 has passed unanimously.
Okay. So now we are left with the amended bar item. And if there are no further questions or comments, we can go forth and actually vote on the whole package. Seeing none, let's proceed with the vote.
Director Harris. Director Burke.
Aye.
Director Geary.
Aye.
Director Pinkham.
Aye.
Director Peters.
Aye.
This motion has passed unanimously.
Madam Chair,
Director Harris.
I'd request leave to be excused. I have a filing deadline. So on behalf of my client, I
Okay.
need to leave.
You are excused.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. I would just like to point out that we are still a quorum at 4 and we may proceed. So I believe we have no further action items because our second action item was going to be the growth boundaries discussion, and that has been effectively postponed to the next board meeting. So we now move to the introduction portion of our meeting. And the first item is the 2016-17 legislative agenda. This went to the Executive Committee on October 6th and was advanced for approval. Approval of this item would adopt the 2016-17 legislative agenda.
Hello again. So this motion is based on policy number 1225, legislative and program advocacy. And the board, per the policy, the board is responsible for developing annual federal and state legislative agendas for the district that are consistent with the furtherance of the district's current strategic plan. The draft developed that is attached to the board action report began by looking at last year's because we had some of the similar issues to look at. And you'll see on the draft that there are 3 proposed priorities for this session, with funding being the obvious primary focus. Those 3 include fully funding McCleary by providing ample and sustainable funding for K-12, fund capital projects and remove barriers to address capacity needs, and eliminate the opportunity gaps. And then there are sub-bullets under each of those priorities. I would note that in the board action report, there is a phrase that although the legislative agenda is typically focused on a limited number of priorities, the formal agenda does not limit the district's weigh-in on other topics as they arise during legislative session. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I also want to note that on the agenda is also the the resolution that we passed earlier in the year regarding the Smarter Balance assessment. And do we know what kind of form our efforts will take in Olympia in this regard?
I don't know yet. At this point, we are in the early stages. As was noted in earlier testimony, we had a meeting with some of our Seattle delegation yesterday around some of our capital issues. At this point, we're putting together our legislative agenda, and you'll see on the board action report that upon approval of this, we will reach out to our Seattle delegation and other key partners, including the governor's office, the mayor's office, and the Seattle Council Parent Teacher Student Association, as well as being used during the legislative session. And the point that you were referencing is the second bullet under the eliminate the opportunity gaps, and the phrasing underneath that around addressing fair and equitable assessment is the language from the resolution itself.
Right. Thank you. Are there any? Oh, Director Burke.
We heard testimony today from Jerry Paulette, and one of the things that he mentioned was the inclusion of the MSOC on our legislative agenda as a possible legislative ask. And I'm wondering if, when I look at it, I don't see it explicitly in there. Is that something that we should consider adding, or is that something which should be addressed through other avenues?
Jolyn Berkey, Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance. The biggest place that we remain underfunded is compensation. My strong recommendation, I believe, as well as the deputies, would be to stay the course with the compensation conversation. Compensation is a huge gap for us as well as across the state, likely $3 billion.
Clarification point about that is this because you'll have to school me up again. Is the MSOC out of operations as compared to capital budgets? Is that why that might potentially compete with salaries?
Correct. Right. Material supplies and other operating costs are a part of the general fund operating budget as part of the allocation that comes in to us per FTE in a similar manner as compensation dollars would come to us. So they would be in direct compensation, or I'm sorry, competition with each other. The MSLOC value has been significantly raised by the legislature. The compensation dollars have not moved at all.
Thanks a bunch. That's great clarification for me.
Are there any other questions or comments about this item? Director Geary.
Do either you or Aaron recall any other comments that Representative Paulette made that are not fairly encompassed within this legislative agenda?
He spoke to a number of things, so I don't think I can say that everything that he spoke to is going to be on this one page. He also spoke to some of the capital issues specifically that I don't think you see as much here, though there is a capital section. Broadly, as was also mentioned in testimony with regard to the Seattle Council PTSA, are sort of overarching themes around eliminating the opportunity gap, fully funding McCleary, things like that. I definitely see alignment there. Did you see that?
All right, seeing no further questions, I think we're ready to move on to the next item, which is approval of collective bargaining agreement with Pacific Northwest Regional Council of Carpenters. That came to the Audit and Finance Committee on October 13, where we advanced it for consideration.
Good evening. Bruce Scoura, Director of Facilities. So we're here to request school board approval of a new contract with the Pacific Northwest Council of Carpenters. This is a 3-year contract with new language clarifying seniority, work shifts, and overtime, as well as a percentage increase in salary. Approval of this contract will extend our long-term relationship with the Carpenters Union. So, good group. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
I'm trying to recall why it was advanced for just consideration. Do you recall what the discussion was around that?
We had an issue where there was a preliminary payment made to the carpenters prior to the board approval. So that payment to the carpenters has since been taken back and will
That's right.
be contingent upon your approval.
All right.
I believe that was why.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Director Burke.
Just as a general information item for me, could you share approximately how many staff are affected by this?
18.
18.
We have 18 carpenters, yes.
And can you paraphrase what sort of role they have in the district? What sort of work they do for us?
Boy, they're kind of our generalists within the district. They build furniture, they repair walls, basically general carpentry throughout the whole district.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, thank you.
And I think this was approval and action. No?
No, we're just doing introduction
Okay,
today.
thank you.
Thanks. All right, the next item is amending Board Policy 2030, Service Animals in Schools. I'll take this to CNI, our chair.
This came to the October CNI meeting, October 10th, and was moved forward for consideration by the full board.
So me again. I am here to help present the motion to amend policy number 2030, Service Animals in Schools. This motion is being brought to ensure our policy is compliant with Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, the Department of Justice Guidance, and the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights Guidance, or OCR. In August of 2015, OCR had concerns about another district's use of the same WASDA model policy that we currently have. That district worked with feedback from OCR to revise their policy. The proposed revision that is attached to the board action report is in alignment and consistent with those changes that the other district made. The practical implication of the change, and I'll just highlight that section that is written on the board action report under policy implication. The practical implication is that the change would omit 2 sentences that state that a student or employee must submit a written request to the building principal, and that the principal, in consultation with the Section 504 coordinator, shall make a written determination whether or not to permit the service animal in schools. Those sentences would be replaced with one that states, generally the district will modify its policies, practices, or procedures to permit the use of a service animal by an individual with a disability. On the 3rd page of the board action report, there is a list of some outreach that was conducted with regards to reviewing this policy at the CNI Policy Committee on October 10th, 2016. Additional outreach was requested. You'll note that in number 5 and number 6 on page 3 of the board action report that was conducted. And also note that as of October 25th, the district had not received any feedback or suggestions. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
What form did the outreach take that we did not get any response? Do we know that people knew we were looking for feedback?
So the additional outreach that was requested, or the outreach in general?
Oh, the additional outreach.
So let's see. On Friday, October 14th, the Special Education PTSA, as well as a dozen other disability and advocacy service organizations, were notified via email around the information, as well as it was shared on Tuesday, October 18th, with the Special Education Advisory and Advocacy Council, or SEAC, and it was also put on the main page of the district newsletter and shared in School Beat. I think those are the outreach.
All right, and there was no feedback that was elicited from those efforts?
No.
All right. Okay. Director Burke.
Quick thank you to you and to staff bringing forward this policy work with a attached updated superintendent procedure as well.
Well, I really can't take the credit. Kelly Schmidt, our student civil rights compliance officer, did all of the work on this, and so thank you. Thanks go to her.
share my appreciation for that, because I think that's much easier for us to work with as a board and to share with the community when we have a fully developed policy and procedure.
All right. Oh, Director Geary.
And I appreciate the additional outreach.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So our next item is coming from the Ops Committee, and that's amending Board Policy 4215, tobacco-free environment. Let's see, our Ops Chair isn't here, so Director Pinkham, would you like to state the date it came to your committee?
Yes, this item came to the Ops Committee on October 20th and was heard by the committee and moved on to the board for consideration, for approval.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Davidson. I'm the Manager of Prevention and Intervention, and I'm here to propose that the board amend policy number 4215, tobacco-free environment, due to some recent legislative changes as well as WASDA recommendations. The RCW vapor products was recently created that prohibits the use of vapor products by persons under the age of 18, as well as the use of vapor products in schools within 500 feet of schools and on school transportation. Based on WASDA's recommendations, we would also like to call out that smoking in district-owned vehicles is prohibited in addition to district-sponsored vehicles, and to provide additional clarity around vapor devices and vapor products.
Are there any questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to item number 5, and that's repeal of policy D121.00, student activities, general standards and regulations. And I will look to our CNI chair.
Where'd you go? Okay. This was discussed at CNI for a couple of months and brought forward October 10th, was reviewed and moved forward to the full board with a recommendation for approval.
All right.
Hi, Directors. Mike Strosky, Chief of Schools. So this has been brought, as Director Burke mentioned a number of times before you. And the action that we're requesting is that in 1985, this is an outdated policy that is more adequately addressed in other board policies, therefore making this current policy outdated and redundant. And we believe it's also ineffective and obsolete compared to the 6 referenced policies that are in the document that you have before you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Director Geary.
I'll just thank you for this work. I know it's not very glamorous to move forward in the elimination of things versus the creation of things, but it's nice to have our policies cleaned up.
Thank you.
Director Burke.
Ditto. I understand this was hard because when we look at it, there's a bunch of things in it. We're like, yeah, we believe that. Yeah, we believe that. There's a bunch of really good common sense things in it that we don't want to see them go away. But recognizing that many of them are not actionable, not enforceable, and already exist in our other policies makes us enthusiastic about letting them go away.
All right. Thank you. So our next item is no longer item number 6, since we addressed that earlier, so we jump over to item number 7, and that is acceptance of the Washington Schools Risk Management Pool, also known as WSRMP, School Security Grant. That came to Audit and Finance Committee on October 13th, where it was advanced to the full board for approval.
Thank you, Peggy McAvoy, Assistant Superintendent for Ops, and I am bringing forward an opportunity to accept a grant from the Washington State Risk Management Pool for $332,657. The purpose of this grant is to enhance safety and security in our schools. We have ways to provide access control through intercom systems and buzzers in all of our new schools. However, our old schools are not yet equipped with that. So the purpose of this grant is to expand the ability of some of our older schools to have that. So we're planning to put in these intercom systems into 2 additional high schools, 2 middle schools, 3 K-8s, and 16 elementary schools with this funds.
Are there any questions or comments? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brings us to our next item. Item number 8, Resolution 2016-17-6, certifying excess levies and calculation of general fund levy rollback. This also came to the Audit and Finance Committee on October 13th, where it was advanced to the full board for approval.
Jo Limburgi, Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance. Each year, this is something that comes before the board every year. Before the next calendar year tax levies are finalized by King County, the school board is required to certify the collection amounts. So the capital project amount does not change from the original amount approved by the voters, but oftentimes our general fund levy for maintenance and operations has what's called a rollback. And this is constrained by certain calculations that are required by law. OSPI gives us the amount that we're authorized to collect, and that amount is included in the bar for your consideration.
Are there any questions or comments? All right, thank you. Our next item is item number 9. Bex, I see there's a correction from not BTA4, but Bex4, Resolution 2016-17-5, intent to construct the Loyal Heights Elementary School modernization and addition projects. And I'm going to look to our ops representative tonight.
Okay, this motion was discussed at the Operations Committee on October 20th. The committee moved this item forward to the full board with recommendation for approval.
Good evening, directors. My name is Richard Best. I'm Director of Capital Projects and Planning for Seattle Public Schools. This is a formal process in which you will pass a, we will seek your approval, and I believe you passed by board resolution, the intent to construct Loyal Heights Elementary School with state funding dollars. The state of Washington requires this because school districts previously have implemented projects that were not funded with state dollars, and so they asked that the dollars that come to Loyal Heights Elementary School be utilized for Loyal Heights Elementary School's construction. This does not tie up, this does not award the bid at this moment in time. I know that might be an issue, Director Pinkham, that you have concerns about. This is just a resolution that says dollars that we're receiving from the state of Washington will be utilized for the construction of Loyal Heights Elementary School, and that Loyal Heights will be bid and built as intended for those dollars. Sorry, a poor explanation for a rather simple bar.
Director Pinkham?
So just to clarify, when you say as intended, that doesn't mean that we're committing to any architecture plans at this time?
Correct. You will have the ability to award the bid and to look at the bid alternates. One of those bid alternates is the 2-classroom childcare facility. We intend to bring that to Operations Committee on December 15th, intro that bid on January 4th, and then hope that you will take action on January 18th.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, thank you. So our next item is item number 10. I think this is in the same realm, and that is BTA4 constructability review report for the Loyal Heights Elementary School modernization and addition project. And I again look to our ops representative.
This motion was discussed at the Operations Committee meeting on October 20th. The committee moved this item forward to the full board with recommendation for approval.
So a constructability review, directors, is a way of ensuring that both the drawings and the specifications have a quality control check prior to bidding. This is made up of a team of outside architects who haven't been involved in the project, engineers, and also contractors who will not be working on the project. In this case, because it's a GCCM project, we are allowed to use Skanska for folks that who are not working on this project to review these documents. They have come up with a list of items in which they think further clarification is required, and the architect has either indicated yes, he's providing that clarification, and the actions taken, or no, and why not. And so you've got that document also attached to your bar request. We need your approval for the deform process.
Director Burke.
I have a question. I haven't done a deep dive in this. Does the, let me get the exact language, the constructability report, is it just for the building, or is it the entire site? Basically, does it include the grounds? And I know-
Correct. It includes the entire project, Director Burke.
Okay. I know that there was a discussion around that project that when we were talking about different options around a more kind of real estate friendly or more square footage friendly play space.
It would not be reviewing the design to make modifications. What a constructability review does is it looks at the architects and engineers' plans concerning site development and building construction and says, as a contractor, are these plans sufficient for me to build this project? Are there any things that are in conflict in these plans? Are there any ambiguities that you could clarify for a contractor to more fully understand what's intended in these plans? But it's not looking at making any revisions whatsoever to the design of the project. It's just making sure that the design is articulated in a manner in which contractors can understand how to bid.
Right. I guess that's
Okay.
that's my that goes to the root of my question. Is the site plan and the landscaping and the play space and the rain gardens that were a potential point of contention and might be a place to reclaim a little bit of play space, has that been reflected already in the plan?
Correct. It's reflected as a bid alternate currently
Okay.
in the plan, Director Burke. And so that has been reviewed as well to make sure that firms who are bidding on that understand that bid alternate.
So the two bid alternates that we're talking about that kind of address the contentious topics represent the childcare spaces and then the site landscaping.
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And just for clarification, projects normally have between, I'm going to say, 10 and 20 alternates of this size, projects of this size. So there's a lot more than just two to review for this constructability team.
Any other questions or comments on this item? All right, then we will move on to item 11, Pt4, Magnolia Elementary School Renovation and Addition Project, Value Engineering Report, State Funding Assistance. This also went to Ops.
This motion was discussed at the Operations Committee meeting on October 20th. The committee moved this item forward to the full board with recommendation for approval.
So this is early on in the project. The constructability review happens at the end of construction documents. We call it actually 95% construction documents. Value engineering happens at the very beginning of the project during the right at the end of the schematic design phase. This is another architectural team not involved with the project and engineers that are not involved with the project coming and looking at a project and really brainstorming as to, are there ways that the district's value can be enhanced in the implementation of this project? Are there other building systems that could be utilized than what's being proposed that make more economic sense and add value to the project? It's really a brainstorming session, and so that's why you'll see there was approximately, for Magnolia Elementary School, there were 51 different value recommendations made, of which 42 were rejected. The 9 that were accepted did save $500,000. It's a process that's required on projects greater than 50,000 square feet, and Magnolia Elementary School will be greater than 50,000 square feet when it is constructed. So your approval is required for our D7 form.
Director Pinkham?
And can I get the total square footage for the site? You're saying 50,000 for the building itself, or?
Yeah, the building will be in excess of 50,000 square feet, and that's the threshold in which value engineering has to be implemented on a project. I can give you that. I don't have it tonight, but I know that we know that information. Director Pinkham. I'll include that in the Friday memo to the board.
Are there any other questions or comments on this item? All right, thank you. We'll now move on to item.
Can I ask one clarifying question? Would you also like to see the site plan in that Friday memo to the board for
Yes.
Magnolia? Okay.
I jumped into that answer because I know we've all been very interested in all the building plans that have been happening lately, and then we're sure we're going to have
I can appreciate that.
constituents who want to know as well. Thank you. All right, item 12, Pt4, final acceptance of contract P5065 with Lincoln Construction Incorporated for Jane Addams Middle School repurposing and seismic improvements projects Phase 2. This also came to the Operations Committee.
And this motion was also discussed on October 20th by the Operations Committee. Committee moved this item forward to the full board with a recommendation for approval.
So this is work that was done at Jane Addams Middle School during the summer of 2015. You have in your board package the letter from Huddeball and Aremus noting that all of the punch list items are complete and the project was built as the architect intended. The change orders on this phase of work, and this phase was implemented, started late, I'm going to say late April, early May of 2015, was complete in August of 2015. So there were some expenditures for overtime when additional work was added that wasn't initially anticipated. We did encounter some unforeseen conditions, so I think the change order amount is actually very reasonable. I look on modernization projects to confirm that we're below 10%. So we're recommending your approval on this. Your approval will then allow us to close out this project with the various state agencies and get their closeout documents returned for us, and this portion of this project will be done. Jane Addams Middle School is a 4-phase project. Work occurred again this summer, and work will occur again next summer before the Pt4 project that was identified in the voters in 2012 and voted on in 2013 is complete. So,
Director Pinkham.
Just want to get some clarification on how you spoke here, because what I heard was that you said that the project started late in April, or did it start in late April?
It started in late April, early May timeframe. I don't know the exact date it started.
Yeah, it's just the wording. It almost sounded like you said it didn't start on time, but it started late.
It started on time. We did run into some unforeseen conditions during the summer of 2015. We did have to pay some acceleration to the contract to get the work done by the time school opened, and that's what I was making reference to. It's articulated in Huddeball and Aremus's letter that's included in the board package.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to hopefully get that clarified, that it
Okay.
did start on time. And
Yep. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I believe we've reached the end of our agenda, and I call this meeting adjourned at 8:12. Thank you, everyone.